Two champion players are secretly abusing a broken duo, beating players from the best team in Europe. But how? Get ready for Sim Turret's blocking sleep darts, Twisted Minds player Seicoe getting traitor gapped, and a complete steamroll as two names you probably don't know of, Fairy Tail and Marky, take over on a duo you never saw coming. The first thing to note is the setup before we even get into a fight. If you've watched my #1 sim video, you'll already be familiar with some of these, but all three of these turrets are used for scouting. One on the top left choke, one down in the room underneath, and another hidden in a bush to the right side coast. As for Sim's TP, Fairy Tail places it to the adjacent high ground, serving a few purposes. Firstly, it obviously gives his Orisa a possible escape. Secondly, it gives him a different angle to spam the choke from, and thirdly, it creates distance against the enemy tracer. The fancy word for this is out-rotating, something Team Liquid should learn to do instead of standing still against dive heroes. Anyways, Fairy Tail sets up another cross TP, this time just to zone away the Sojourn Ana from being able to push. This helps relieve some pressure off his Orisa, who's eventually forced to drop, coupled with a nice orb to force Seicoe's recall alongside another zoning TP, and things seem to be at a stalemate. In the meantime, Marky does get his recall forced out, but instead of ego dueling, he ducks underneath the high grounds. Both tracers are actually very happy to handshake and not take a duel. Marky doesn't want to take a duel considering he's got no recall, and Seicoe is fine ignoring him because Marky's not a threat to his team anymore. However, as Seicoe gets his recall forced, this is where we enter the tracer duel. Now, get your 20-year-old improver memes ready because there's a lot of micro here. Both tracers initially stalemate it out, backing away from each other as neither have got a clear advantage to push. The next peek around the corner though is important, as this is where Marky lands some key damage onto Seicoe. This is more of an error on Seicoe's part, as he's busy reloading in open space or getting shot at by Marky. Couple this with the brick helping him, and it's no wonder that Seicoe gets his recall forced. Marky gets another good clip onto Seicoe as soon as he exits recall, and because the Kiriko drops on the high ground to help him out, Marky safely blinks away. The next time Marky peeks, he's constantly using the white car as his main source of cover, and while he takes some decent damage from Seicoe, it doesn't really matter. Seicoe has no recall and has to put himself in danger using 2 blinks just to do good damage. Marky still has his recall and a mega to go to, so in just a few moves of good cover usage and reload management, one tracer has recall and the other doesn't. With that advantage, Marky aggressively pushes, blinking and whipping Seicoe from behind, low-key discombobulating him. Without any cover to use, Seicoe blinks out in open space, how Marky stops shooting for a brief moment. This is called trigger discipline. As a result, he uses those spare bullets, plus a blink melee to finish the kill. Now, if you thought that was intense, you haven't seen anything yet. Fairy Tail once again TPs onto the Ana, but notice 2 things. Firstly, he doesn't take the TP immediately. This baits the Ana into instinctively nading the TP because the previous times, Fairy Tail did TP through immediately. With the nade gone, Fairy Tail TPs through, blocking Sleep Dart with his turrets. I even had to check multiple POVs to make sure I wasn't tripping. You can actually see the hit marker the Ana gets for Sleep Darting the turrets. With both cooldowns completely outplayed, Fairy Tail pushes the Ana and deservedly lands the kill. The Sojourn kill afterwards is just a cherry on top. Now, next fight, things do start to look quite losable. The enemy D.Va just blows up the Life Weaver, and Fairy Tail ends up going down because the Brig is in Narnia. Funnily enough, Fairy Tail had placed a TP for the Brig earlier, which sadly got aired. Marky's the only one who stays alive here, pulsing the D.Va to force bomb. You might think it's completely lost now, but you're about to see the biggest clutch of all time. Marky gets a first touch at just under 90%, recalling out. But then, he touches at 99.6%. This gives just enough time for his Weaver to put the tree on point, meaning that he doesn't even die for this. Soon after, the Sim Wall gets layered over on point, and while it doesn't provide immediate value, it doesn't need to. It dramatically slows down the enemy team's push, with the D.Va even getting demech'd, and Seicoe getting his recall forced again. So even though they're down a man, they can't push the advantage. From there, Fairy Tail catches the D.Va kill alongside zoning the Sojourn away. The clutching doesn't stop there though. In the next fight, despite Alba going down on the Lucio, Marky hits a clutch pulse into the enemy Sojourn. Then he keeps the backline at bay, which makes me talk about the next idea of zoning. Honestly, for about 80% of the game, Fairy Tail was zoning away the Ana just by placing a TP onto her, and he only reached for the kill when it made sense to do so. Part of the reason this was so effective is down to how squishy the Ana Kiriko backline is. The Kiriko is forced to basically stack on her Ana, otherwise she'll just die to Symmetra. It's one of the most exploitable weaknesses of a double flex support backline, which we've seen before with Juno players getting left alone by flanking Moiras. The Kiriko stacking on the Ana also has a knock-on effect to Seicoe, because now he's left alone without any help, meaning a fucking Life Weaver kills him. From there, the game's basically over. A Sim wall and the Lucio beat is just too much a sting to deal with on points. Speaking of Life Weaver, I'm probably gonna get a comment about it, so just watch this shit on screen. Zoning backline in general is a very key part of playing Sim. On Gibraltar 3rd point defense, against Alcatia player Landon, Fairy Tail uses the range perk on TP to its fullest potential. He ends up popping a TP by the blue box, quickly TPing through to fire an orb, before quickly leaving. Not to mention, he also predicts a perfect orb onto the enemy Tracer, forcing out recall. Before I continue, quick coaching plug, get my Spyro approved coaching in the top link down below. Perks and bans are something I feel like I always need to address. On Tracer, it's pretty self-explanatory. The health pack blink perk is very good at holding space, like the Mega Room on Numbani, or to the left side on Route 66. And 2 extra blinks on recall is still a no-brainer. On Symmetra, there is at least a bit more nuance, but in most cases, Fairy Tail is picking the extra TP range and extra regeneration on shields. The turret perk and the beam perk only become useful in brawlier situations, which are few and far between in ranked games. As for bans, I was told Pharah and Freya were the 2 biggest ones, and for obvious reasons. They can both pretty much stay in the air permanently, and Tracer Sim have few options at directly dealing damage to them. But what if your team doesn't want to ban Pharah? Against the big J of 9, alongside pro players Lubda and Ziad, this is gonna be the real test. Admittedly, things don't start well, as J9 just claps Marky by the coast. The real trick here is avoiding Pharah LOS and using TP to quickly push aside before she can even do anything. In other words, out-rotating the Pharah. Fairy Tail pops down a TP for his team, with the Orisa immediately spinning in, alongside Ziad finding a huge nade onto Lubda. There's almost nothing the Pharah could have done here, because there just isn't enough time to punish the TP. Meanwhile, Marky just peacefully forces cart, low-key reminding me of KSA in that game against Gen G. Things do become incredibly messy in the fight after, but in short, the Nano allows Marky to dive bomb the backline, finding 2 crucial kills. The Winston also gets webbed between 3 different angles, making it easy to clear him and force the point thereafter. The last idea I want to go over, linked onto this, is being extremely hard to clear. This couldn't be more clear on Gibraltar, where you can see both the Sim and Tracer holding the top right high grounds. Nobody from the enemy backline can safely clear the Sim Tracer, and actually, it takes a full rally push just to end up killing the Sim. But this comes at a very expensive cost to their frontline, as Marky one-clips the Ashe, pulses the Winston, and wins the fight. In short, the Sim Tracer are playing a position that the people clearing them either put themselves at direct risk, or put the rest of their team at risk, which is exactly what we saw. Anyways, check out this video on screen if you enjoyed this one, and until next time.